Everybody, this is A7X Fan Ben here with Xerix for Pirate CSG Podcast number 32. And in this episode, to continue where we left off in episode number 31, tonight we're going to be going over changes to Wizkids Pirate CSG game pieces that I found in the original Wizkids documents. There's going to be a link in the description here for this podcast, including on the live screen on YouTube, so you can see the Google Doc as we're going through it. And that's what we're going to see on the video here as well. So we're just going to go over all the changes I found. There's actually a lot of them. It's about 6 pages worth of changes, but a ton of them are extremely minor, so it shouldn't go too slowly, but we'll slow down when there's, more momentous changes, if you will. So anyway, I guess we can start right off here.
And this first one up looks like a pretty significant change.
Yeah, so basically, I'll take it, I guess, because this is my favorite ship, actually, HMS Lord Algernon, and it's a Spanish main 5-master, 16 points, and the big change here, so 1 point more, but instead of guns of 2 S's on the ends and 2 L's in the middle cannons are 1 L's, so it's 2 S, 1 L, 1 L, 1 L, 2 S, and this is really kind of validating and awesome for me to see, because I've been making custom game pieces with rank 1 cannons for years now. I think since I first started in 2011 in making custom game pieces. So
yeah, your historical fantasy set.
Yeah, exactly. So Pirates of the Age of Sail had a lot of rank 1 cannons. So this is really cool for me to see that Wizkids was actually toying with the idea of rank 1 cannons right from the start. And I kind of wish they had, because then only ones would miss without a world heater. So it'd be pretty cool. And to see it on my favorite ship, and like the first or second ship listed in the Pirates documents overall, because the English were actually the first faction listed in the original Spanish main spreadsheet that I shared, is pretty awesome. So one of my favorite changes, without a doubt. And we talked about
interesting.
We talked about it on the 31st episode as well. So it would definitely change the game quite a bit, depending on how many ships had this kind of stat.
Well, it looks like the Lord Walpole would have had a 1L cannon right in the middle, or main mast.
Yeah, instead of 2L as well. Yeah, not a huge difference, but I don't know if I got all the changes. Should have said it at the beginning. I'm sure I missed at least some, and once we get to South China Seas, we'll see how it got really screwy and weird. So it was kind of hard to keep track of everything, but I got most of them. So
yeah.
Cool.
King Edward, some minor. Well, I guess it depends on how you want to define it. 14 points instead of what it is currently, which is 13.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it would have had really accurate cannons of 2S, 2L, 2L, and 2S, as opposed to the set of 4s that it currently has.
Yeah. And that ship has a nice captain crew. So we've both got the master spreadsheet up here that you can see if you're seeing the video. So the captain crew, she gets +1 to her cannon rolls. So with the change stats, she would have rank 1 cannons, and you probably would put a captain on. So that would make the King Edward considerably better as a gunship and even as a hybrid as well, which is how I like to run her. It makes her a little bit more of a pure gunship, so you might go crazy with specialists or equipment, stuff like that, with how accurate they would become. So I think it's good they nixed her a little bit, because I think she's still a very good 4-master at 13. So
still, the potential is there, because they don't mention cargo changes.
Yeah.
So she still would have had 6 cargo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All kinds of fun to play around with.
Yep. Yeah, and for anybody listening or checking out this document later on, the changes, you can find them all, and I did put the link to the post where you can download the official Wizkids documents. So what we're looking at in the Google Doc, the shared Google Doc, is only changes. So if it doesn't say, like Lord Algernon, it doesn't say anything about the cargo, so the cargo stayed the same. So only the points and the guns changed, for example. So anyway, see how we talked about the Lord Walpole. The Bolingbroke was going to be 10 points instead of 9, which seems kind of pointless. She's a good ship at 9 points, so there's no real reason to increase it there.
Wait a second. You sure that's accurate? The spreadsheet says the Bolingbroke is 10 points as well.
Okay. Yeah, I probably messed it up then. Yeah, my bad. Sorry. I was probably thinking...
Maybe it was meant to be 9 points?
Yeah, I was probably thinking the Windjammer or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oops. All right. Yeah, the next one, the Plantagenet, had 2 S cannons. which isn't really a big deal. It makes her a little bit better, but not a lot better. So that's just kind of kind of a meh change. So
yeah. And then looks like just some name changes here.
Yep.
Admiral Houston was what Admiral Morgan was. Lord Harrow became Sir Christopher Mings. Baron Castlereagh, I guess, became Governor Lynch.
Yep.
Harrow's Grenadiers became Ming's Marauders. It looks like the only change here would have been to Castlereagh's Steward became Lynch's Noose. 3 points and +1 to boards when defending.
Yeah.
So when you get boarded, you get +1, but when you're doing the boarding, you don't get +1.
Yeah, exactly.
That's weird.
Yeah, so it was considerably worse. I like +1 to boarding overall at 2 points, which is, I'm glad they changed it to that, because that's, what it should cost and what it's worth, in my opinion. So +1 to when defending for 3 is definitely overpriced and just kind of a little bit lame. I do find interesting about some of these changes, though, they basically went from fantasy to reality as far as I can tell, because Morgan, Mings, Lynch, those are all real people. So they started off fantasy and then they decided to go with more historical figures, which I do like quite a lot. So I'm glad they changed those. But
maybe they were thinking they would save the fantasy people for later down the line, later sets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and maybe there's no flavor text in the Spanish main spreadsheet, but maybe some of their ideas were, recreated with Thomas Gunn and others in terms of flavor ideas. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, and then just to finish up the English from Spanish Main, it goes in order. I put paragraph breaks between factions in the set areas just to make it a little less like a wall of text. But the last few English, the Alchemist became Carbon Charlie, which makes sense given you can turn stuff into cannons. And then the Alchemist's Apprentice is Powder Pete. I'm glad they gave him a more distinctive identity. But I'm kind of messing around with some apprentice ideas for my fantasy set. But anyway, on to the Pirates.
Looks like just a bunch of name changing here. Not a whole lot of different abilities. I mean, you have something here called the Nereid, or the Nereid became the Sea Nymph. Triggerfish became the Greyhound. Gallows Man became Mortadella Corona. Jaeger Gull, Batavian Bat. I think that's still some kind of vague German there. Picaroon became the Silverback. Batavian Bat, originally, but became the Freedom. Just a bunch of names swapping around here.
Yeah.
The Bristons became El Chico. Doppelganger became Royal Fortune. It looks like the only thing significant here was El Phantasma was originally 1 point, and this ship cannot be hit by forts.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's really interesting, because we've never seen that on a crew. And I think it is probably 1 point ability, but it can still be good. It would give you really good options, because you wouldn't have to get a whole ship and dedicate that, especially in a build total. If you knew you were playing an opponent that played forts a lot, instead of having to try to purposely go with the Windjammer, for example, which has the same ability, basically.
Yeah.
And I kept the ability text, the exact ability text, just to not mess with it whatsoever. Except in the case of some rare typos, and with Phantasma for just 1 point, you could put them on, the Harbinger, and then have that ship, and you wouldn't have to necessarily dedicate one ship to fort wrecking. Makes it more flexible to have it on a crew, and then you could swap the crew around to different ships. So I think that would be cool. But Phantasma worked out really well, so it's good either way. So yeah.
And this change is probably a result of them deciding not to bring in forts until Revolution.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and we saw the Spanish main forts already. So one thing, the Picaroon, some people may recognize that name as one of the original artwork ships. So some of the original artwork for Spanish Main shows a picture of a ship called the Picaroon, and Wolf kind of hinted or revealed multiple times in the past that it became the Silverback, but people are still sometimes there's been wondering about whether there's a prototype of the Picaroon or whatever out there or something like that.
But those crazy collectors.
Yeah, it looks more like a computer mock-up though, so to our knowledge no copies have been discovered or anything. So the Silverback is what it became in the final set. So, and then the next change, the Ghost Crew actually had Home Island rating ability instead of El Phantasma. So they kind of reversed that and then changed El Phantasma's ability. So it would have been a cheaper combo. Ghost Crew eventually became Crew Protect for 6 points, even though it's really worth about maybe 4. as it usually was after that, but kind of interesting, but I'll take the next one too. So basically, it looks like the original version of Captain Jack Hawkins was called Buckland Jack, and for 1 point it says his ability is just, when the ship is pinned, you may kill a crewman on the ship that pinned you. So just about the same as Captain Jack Hawkins' additional ability, he also has Captain for 4 points total in Spanish Main. So a bit of a difference there. I'm glad they changed it because I like the name Hawkins better, and plus he's a better crew with 2 abilities built in. So,
are the Ghost Crew really 6 points?
Yeah, at least in Spanish Main, yeah.
Huh, because I'm looking at the master spreadsheet, it says they're 4.
Oh, I don't know. Huh. I'm pretty sure there's 6 on the card. Maybe they were originally 4. I don't know. Huh. Yeah, I'll have to check that. Yeah,
we're doing like changes in more than one way. We're doing a fact check now of your spreadsheet.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it should be 6 on the card at least. But anyway.
I think they're 4, or 5 maybe, somewhere in the middle ground. I don't know.
Yeah, let me try to check that out here.
Yeah. In the meantime, other changes. Jenny Castle became Jenny Gallows, and Jenny's Red Gunners became Jenny's Red Rampage. Abilities stayed the same, only names changed, which leads me to think maybe the artwork would still have been the same. Placo de Rio, Placo's Parrot, became David Bones Wiley and Lucky the Parrot. Jack's Monkey became Skyme the Monkey, and Josiah/Jacob Lancer became Fidel and Gaspar Zuan.
Yeah.
And that finishes out the Pirates.
Yeah, Ghost Crew is, all 3 versions are 6 points. So yeah, I thought I was right. I think it's because for a bunch of the master spreadsheet I copied from Wizkids documents, and some of those were out of date or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I had to try to do it quickly, but some of it inevitably got messed up. So
yeah. Moving on now from the Pirates to the Spanish, and this one is quite interesting to me. El Garante was going to be 15 points with the same ability in cargo. Mm-hmm. So that's like, a 6-point reduction.
Yeah, it's way better.
That's major.
Yep. Then she could compete with El Corazado at least a little bit. Not necessarily 1v1, but at least in terms of which one you would pick. So, and it would make the Garante, at least a reasonable choice in 40-point games. As is at 21, she's very difficult to fit into that build.
Yeah, man, I wouldn't mind seeing more ships with that ability at that point cost and size.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then the next one, El Tirón, it became the Joya del Sol, and it was 14 points, but it's weird because I think in the original spreadsheet it says it's like a 5-mast cut, but then there's only 4 cannons, so maybe they were thinking about doing 3 Spanish 5-masters. I'm not really sure. It's a little weird. There's a bunch of inconsistencies and I guess you could say confusion in the spreadsheets and documents from Wizkids. Understandably, because it wasn't the final versions of the sets. So the Joya del Sol is going to be a little more expensive, which I think would be good. She's probably worth 16 to 20 points, not 12. But so she became overpowered by making it so low. But it is interesting to see the original name, and how she may have been a 5-master as well, which would be kind of interesting.
Yeah. More Spanish firepower. Huzzah. Yeah. And lots of name just changing around here. Mm-hmm. I don't want to try to pronounce that. Became Cazador del Pirata. The Furia became El Tirador. Furia was originally La Luz de Luna for 11 points instead of 12. Reasonably minor stuff. Yeah. Except maybe for La Repulsa here. Mm-hmm. Was 8 points instead of what she wound up at 14.
Yeah. It's another 6-point reduction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And both with the different versions of the cheerleading action thing. Huh.
So, I wonder why they decided that this was worth more.
I know, they should have stuck with the original, especially with the Repulsa.
Yeah.
Repulsa
if they'd kept the point costs on these 2 abilities for, the other times they appeared later on down the line, I think it would have made that ability much more viable and a bit more, I guess in the case of La Repulsa, respected, instead of being like some kind of meme among pirates. Mm-hmm. It's like, exactly. Look, a cheerleader, haha.
Yep.
Pretty much useless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there must have been some kind of incident in playtesting they did to make them think this.
That's a good point. Maybe that happened with El Garante, and then they like applied it to the Repulsa when they shouldn't have, thinking it was the same ability or something. I don't know. Either way, though, it seems like they messed up the point costs on this and the +1 to boarding. So both of them, they had both of them wrong at some point, but the boarding got better and this one got worse. So really weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then some more changes. El Tigre became the Pescados de Plata. Rodrigo the Moor became Capitan Alarico Castro, and Rodrigo's loyalists, of course, instead of Castro's loyalists. And once again, 3 points for +1 to boarding rolls. And then Sebastian Barba was the 4-point version of Master Gunner Rogelio Vasquez. Myself and Wolf both agree that the Vasquez's ability to make all the ship's cannons out of range should be about 4 points. Maybe he could get away with 3, but that one got more expensive. It went up to 5 for the final version of the set, which is too bad.
Yeah.
And then still would have a link to Barba's armorer, which would be Joaquin Vega in the final set. So once again, I think it's good they did a more distinct name change rather than just repeating the name for a lesser, whatever. So, and then, this one is funny. I put an exclamation point.
Yeah.
Luis de Alva has +1 to cannon rolls against the English for 3 points. In our game, he was going to be 5 points for a mono-faction bonus, which is just absurd. Nuts. Yeah, so it's really worth about 2 points. World Hater is about right at 4 points. Maybe 5 would be fine too, but 5 points for cannon bonus against one faction, even against the Pirates, that would be just totally absurd. So I thought I'd put an exclamation point by that one. It's so weird. And then some more name changes. Diego Del Nero became Almirante Devante Del Nero. Pablo El Pagano became Nemesio Diaz. Pablo's Hugen became Fernando Sanchez. Antonio de Silva. That one's pretty much the same. I might delete that one.
They just added Commandant to his title.
Yeah, I tried to catch all of them. Marcio Ruiz became Gonzalo Mora. And Plague was originally called Scurvy. So they redid Scurvy in Crimson Coast, but it was going to be Scurvy from the start. So I'm kind of glad they changed that one too. So
yeah.
Okay. That's it for Spanish Main, basically.
Yeah, going on now to Revolution. Apparently no documented changes from Unlimited or Crimson Coast.
Nope.
And we're just assuming that Revolution / the Unlimited series, the ships are basically the same. It really only matters to a collector.
Yeah.
For us. And first up here, we've got the Black Swan. Originally had 6 cargo instead of her listed at 5 for 14 points. Yeah, for 14 points. Everything else would have stayed the same about her.
Yeah.
So, still 5 masts.
Yeah, she had 4 cargo originally, so it's got, or she became 4 cargo, so it got.
Yeah, so she got nerfed pretty hard. Exactly.
Yeah, so she would be pretty similar to the Victoire in a way, same point cost in cargo, and almost a little bit like the Roanoke, but I think it's fine.
But faster maybe than both ships with that SSS base move.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's fine that they nerfed her a bit. She's still quite a good ship, so I think it would be cool to see her at 5 cargo, but either way, she's still good.
Yeah. So. I actually don't have this one, and I've got every other pirate fiber. I just don't have this one.
Oh, wow.
Weird.
Yeah, she took me a while to acquire, I believe. So, yeah, she's one of the coolest looking ones, too. Anyway.
Yeah.
The Golden Medusa was going to have 5 cargo instead of 4, and the bow gun was going to be slightly better at 2L, and the stern cannon was going to be 2S instead of 3L and 3S. So basically all rank 2 cannon. So the Golden Medusa is already a fantastic ship, and with this original change, she would have been even better. And really
more cargo.
Yeah, fearsome hybrid, more so than just.
And the point cost would have stayed the same, so she would have stayed at 15 points.
Yep, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, fantastic. And then the Pride was going to have 4 cargo instead of 3 for 14 points, so 1 more point, 1 more cargo. Not a big change, makes her a little more useful as a hybrid potential. She's got SL speed, so you could just get away with only a captain if you wanted to. The Hades Flame was going to be considerably worse. She was going to be 12 points instead of 13, but with only 2 cargo instead of 4, so I'm glad they doubled it. because she's
Yeah.
she's pricey for a gold runner in the first place. So you got to have some good cargo. So she would have been one of the worst ships in the set if they didn't double the cargo there.
Yeah.
And then finishing up the Pirates, the Lightning didn't have the schooner keyword. She had English crew may use their abilities on this ship, which is kind of interesting, I suppose, and it makes sense if they had a different flavor direction. So, yeah, it doesn't really say anything about English in the flavor I'm seeing. So, that would be kind of cool, but for a 5-point one master, there's not a lot you can do with it. So.
Yeah. Next up are the English, and to me this is an important one because it affects the HMS Dreadnought. When released, Dreadnought has 5 cargo. However, originally they were thinking of only giving her 4. Now, I believe that the Dreadnought needs that 5 cargo space to make up for that ability and that bad speed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything else would have stayed the same. Still high point cost, same cannons, same base speed.
And the point cost, too. I like how they changed it to make it more, because then you can max out the point cost more easily with a huge monster setup. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
especially later down the line once they introduce mercenaries and all that other fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one, I wish they had, or I'm glad they changed it to 5, but these other ones, as a big fan of the English, I wish they had kept these other ones the same that I'm going to go over here. So basically, there was a theme. Yeah, you can see a theme here with the next bunch of ships. Most of the English ships in Revolution were originally going to have more cargo. So the Serapis was going to have 4 instead of 3. The HMS Algiers was going to have 4 instead of 2, which would make her
That's major.
Better. Yeah, she would have been a decent.
You could run her as a 2-masted hybrid.
Yeah, she's got extra action for 12 points. Imagine if that cargo was 4, and she's got good speed, good cannons, pretty solid hybrid.
The next one, however, that it really floors me. The next one here.
HMS Lord Caldwell was going to have 5 cargo instead of 2, which is rough to see as an English player, because the English don't have a lot of good gold runners. This would be one of their best. I would just put a helmsman on at that
10 points.
Yeah, exactly. Put a helmsman on, LS speed for 4 cargo, and you've got that nice defensive ability. So, and yeah, I do find it interesting. The Lord Kenyon is almost the clone of the Lord Caldwell. The Lord Kenyon came out in Barbary Coast and had 4 cargo. The original Lord Caldwell was even better at 5. So that would have been a really great English gold runner. So when I saw that, I was like, oh man, this really hurts the English. It's like, darn it. But oh well. And I was wondering, Wolf said, I PM'd Wolf on Board Game Geek. He said it could have been like a copy and paste error, some kind of like dragging error, because I noticed a lot of the ships ended up with like 3 or 4 cargo English ships in this set. So I don't know if they like dragged the spreadsheet too far and like copied over the cargo or something and made it lower. A lot of them ended up at 2 or 3, especially with 2 masters. I'm seeing, looking at the 2 masters from Revolution for the English, all 4 of them have 2 cargo. And according to this, they were all going to have at least 3, it looks like. So anyway, so disappointing as a big fan of the English, of course. But and then to round that out, HMS Apollo was going to have 4 instead of 2. Once again, would have been a nice empty gold runner. SL speed, 4 cargo for 9 points. That'd be great for the English. The Frolic, 3 cargo instead of 2, not a big change. HMS Greyhound only has 1. She was going to have 3. So with LL,
I would put her up there maybe with like the Banshee's Cry almost.
Yeah, not quite, but for 7 points, LL move 3 cargo. That's a great gold runner and flotilla tug, defensive flotilla tug for the English. So yeah. And then finishing up the English from Revolution, Woodes Rogers is going to be 4 points instead of 5, and pretty much everybody agrees he's borderline useless at 5 with 2 very niche abilities. So he could easily get away with 3, but at least they were thinking about cheaper. I don't know why they went to 5, but oh well.
Yeah. Spanish only really have 1 change, and that's just a real quick, simple name. La Santa Isabel was originally going to be called La Isabella. I guess they just decided to recycle the name later on. Moving on to the French, Le Lion and La Vengeance. Not much to say there, except that La Vengeance was originally going to be Le Lion, and Le Lion was originally going to be La Vengeance. The names just flipped around.
Yeah, that one,
I mean,
will say,
in my opinion, the ships are virtually interchangeable as is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I mix them up all the time. So
yeah, that's fair. What confused me about this was I was reading on the spreadsheet, it said Le Lion or whatever, and then I didn't realize it was the exact same ship as the Vengeance became. And I was like, oh wow, the French really missed out on something good here. And I was like, oh wait, it's just flipped. So I got excited, but then I was like, oh, I should have already known. Once I got to the ability, I was like, oh, okay, this is too similar. This is the Vengeance. Oh, I see. So anyway. Oh, I think I hinted at the next one on 31st episode, which is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Says here, La Republique was going to be 8 points with Espacel speed and 4 cargo. She was released in Barbary Coast.
Yep. So it's going to be a set earlier with L more the speed, 2 more cargo, and only 1 point more. So instead of like a weird fringe like mini dreadnought, she would be like a really good defensive empty gold runner, or not necessarily empty, but great gold runner, or probably a hybrid. I would probably do a captain because she's got 2 S cannons. Then you still have 3 cargo. This would be a really great ship. It's already okay, but mostly just for copying. So this would make her really good on her own.
Yeah. La Favorite became Le Favori for 12 points with 3 cargo. In parentheses here, it says clone of original HMS Frolic.
Yeah. If you notice up above, the HMS Frolic had 3 cargo, and that's something I've noticed in the past. Le Favori is so similar to the Frolic. She just has 3 more cargo. So originally, it was like the same thing, just like a French version, because they both had 3 cargo. But then they totally, without changing the point cost, they nerfed the Frolic to 2 and made the Favori 5. So,
far superior.
Yeah, they totally changed it. And another one I found funny was the Bayonet. I don't know how to pronounce it, but in the Belle Étoile had names flipped. So when I first saw it, I thought of mayonnaise. But
yeah, I was about to say La Bayonnaise. It's like, okay, this is the mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think they changed it to bayonet for pronunciation's sake.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then the last one for the French here is interesting. You guys probably know about the Zero Limit Ransom crew, the reroller version that links to any single crew on the ship. But the original text says this crew is linked to any single French crew. This was for I don't know. I guess it was La Fontaine, I think. And then it says you may switch the linked crew at any time, which is really weird. So you could switch linked crew if you're like transferring the ransom crew across ships. I don't know, this is just weird. I guess if an opponent captured you could, I don't know, it's just weird. You could try to switch it to create like cargo difficulties, because then you wouldn't have the link and the +1 bonus. I don't know, it's not that big a deal, but I find it interesting that you were originally able to switch it. I'm glad they changed it back, because I think it would lead to some weird rules hangups and maybe some ugly situations, but
all kinds of headaches.
Yeah.
I'm going to link the 0 point person to the cargo master. Woo!
Yeah. Yep.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Moving on now, we have coming up the American change section. And this one, off the bat here, is kind of interesting.
Yep.
When released, the Bonhomme Richard has a speed of S plus S.
Yep.
However, here, originally she was going to have S plus L speed, which would have set her apart from her compatriots released significantly.
Yeah.
Probably would have been the fastest American fiver, ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as it is, everyone uses the Enterprise, and everyone uses, some of the other ones from later down the line. Mm-hmm. I don't see too many people using the Bonhomme Richard.
Yeah.
Whereas if she had that S plus L speed and still at 15 points, with all the other stuff, oh my. Yeah. You could run her as a very good hybrid.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a good ship even with S plus S, but S plus L puts her towards the top of the 5-master rankings, I would think. Because I think she would probably be the cheapest at that speed, because I think the other ones are like the Deliverance and the Swallow for the most part.
Yeah.
So yeah, she would be cheap for that speed and one of the best 5-masters in the game. So still a great ship, but was going to be even better. So, and the next one I find a little disappointing. I wish they stuck with the original version of the United States, which was going to be 17 points for 6 cargo instead of a 5-master with only 3 cargo for 15 points. This is the somewhat not useless, but mostly useless American 5-master with broadsides attack, but only S base move. But
yeah, it's not good. I like those original stats much better. I mean,
I would take the 3 cargo for 2 more points, and that makes me think of La Magnifique, because then it would be almost the same, just a little slower at S versus L. So
yeah.
Anyway, maybe that's why they changed it in a way, because one of the weird WizKids documents, I think it was from South China Seas, maybe it was like some questionnaire, and people can find it in the shared zip folder on my site. But it was like a questionnaire talking about like which you think any of these ships are too similar to previous French ships or whatever. So even though the faction wasn't the same, I wonder if somebody said the United States is too similar to La Magnifique, so they nerfed it, but they should have made her like 12 points or something, like instead of 15. But anyway,
possibly. But as Sir Sluggo says here on the stream, with 6 cargo, yeah, you could turn the United States here, that proto version, into a monster gunship.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how far along they planned, but if they were like, thinking about Captain Charles Richard from Savage Shores back here, put him on this and then just go nuts.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
All right, next up, change. The Yankee, originally, or a ship called the Yankee, became the Freedom. So let's see, where's the Freedom? Oh, there she is. All right, so as is the Freedom, let's see. Originally, it would have had 14 points and +1 to cannons with the captain instead of against pirates. So as is the released Freedom, previously known as the Yankee, is 13 points, has 4 masts, 4 cargo, S+L base move, all rank 3 cannons with S Rangers at the end and 3 Ls in the middle, links to David Porter, and gets +1 to cannon rolls against pirates. So, considering that David Porter is a captain broadsides attack, that original ability might have been interesting to see that. Because I'm assuming the link wouldn't have changed, along with, the speed or cargo.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Some of the links are missing from some of the documents as well. And this goes back to the original Yankee we talked about on episode 31.
Yes.
I do find it interesting. +1 to cannons with a captain is definitely better against only the pirates, so that's a little better, but not a huge change overall.
This next change here is really, really nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right. Yeah, the Carolina is already a pretty good ship for the Americans at 7 points with 4 cargo, S+S move, and no ability. But originally she would have been 12 points with triple S speed, 7 cargo, 5 S cannons, and what looks like a proto version of that island treasure trading, in addition to schooner. Wow. It's a heck of a change.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest ever. Yeah.
I mean, that would, if they had kept those original stats, I mean, she would have gone from, being a good, fleet-building ship to just, all right, every American fleet that's competitive has this in it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
If only because, you wouldn't have been able to beat that cargo space. I mean, no American ship until the Frontier had that much cargo space.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, not even the Nerf United States had that much.
Yeah, most of them weren't even close. Like the Providence and the original Carolina would be their best gold runners early on in the sets, but this would totally blow out of the water all those, and also it would compete with some of the best gold runners ever, because 12 points for 7 cargo, at least at that speed, I mean, you can get that with the pirates a little bit, but not at that base move. So, and then you've got a treasure ability that helps her out even more. So you could just do a Huntsman and or Explorer, and she would be one of the best boulders in the game right out of the gate. So I'm glad they nerfed her just because this is overpowered. But
using these original stats with something like a Cargo Master or 2 or 3.
You could fit her in the Frontier in the same fleet and make the Americans like one of the best gold running factions at 40 points, which I'm kind of glad they're not, because it would be kind of strange. But yeah, this is just wacky. This would have changed the Americans like as a faction overall.
Yeah.
How people view them and how people play them. Anyway, a good
yes,
change.
Indeed, Gold Runner all the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, something I'm just recalling, I think it was something that you found a while ago now, and you posted it to the forum. Supposedly, the Americans got like an automatic +2 to all their point costs.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of, the faction they were.
Yeah, they were talking about that on the
that's
Pirate
weird.
CSG online show from Red Dragon and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But yeah, they couldn't have applied that here because I mean, even at 14, she would be too good. So this is crazy. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, so moving on, some minor stuff. The Boston had a bow cannon as a 4S instead of 3S, so she's a tiny bit worse, but she's pretty much an average ship in general. The Providence became the Julius Caesar, so that may have happened before Crimson Coast was released, but I did check the date on the Revolution spreadsheet. It's really interesting to look at the documents, and once again, there's a link in the description and at the top of this shared doc that everybody can look at now. The date for this like draft of Revolution was after Crimson Coast came out, though, so I'm not sure. Maybe it was just a mistake that it was still the Providence at the time, because the Providence came out with Crimson Coast. But anyway, so she became the Julius Caesar, and the Essex turned into the Delaware, but the Delaware was only released in Barbary Coast, so that was kind of an interesting mix-up. I found it interesting too because you have an Essex, right? A ship called that, I think.
Oh, I don't think I do. I think Captain Mike had a custom ship called the Essex.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think 14 points. Yeah, because I used her in CG3. Yeah,
it was like one of like 55 masters you seem to pull out of nowhere.
So partly because of your customs too. So I was
that's true. I mean, I released the Americans, or you covered the Americans from Return of Davy Jones, and I think Beans the Bloodhounds, like right as you hit your high point. It was like, I forgot about these.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Sorry about that. The S6 is from Captain Mike, his custom set. So a nice custom set as well. Anyway, just to finish up the Americans, Flying Fish had 2L 2S guns instead of 3L 3S, so a little bit better. That'd be fine with me because at 9 points she's a little overpriced for a support gunship or tiny hybrid, I guess. The Wasp had 4 cargo instead of 3. Same with the Lynx, so those would both be better. So you can see these changes to the Americans and the English would have made both of them much better at Gold Runner. So I think Wizkids, maybe they did it to try to have more different factions rather than, a lot of great Gold Runners everywhere in all the factions. So I think that's all right, but at the same time, it's kind of, it's hard for people, fans of the English and Americans, to not feel shafted coming out of this podcast. So.
And also, maybe that was their trend of, beginning, less about getting the gold, more about fighting and enforcing, the faction stereotype. Okay, the English have gunships. Oh, so do the Americans, but they're more expensive.
Yep. All right.
Moving on now to the Barbary Coast. Pirates of the Barbary Coast. Looks like all kinds of shenanigans went on here.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, minor thing, the Nubian Prince would have been a point cheaper. As is, released, the Nubian Prince is 15 with all those other interesting and or annoying stats.
Yeah.
Originally, though, they were thinking about making her 14.
Yeah, I don't like that. I hate that ability, so I'd rather see it like 20, so...
Yeah. Now, this is a little interesting about the Janissary's blood. Originally, was going to have, when this ship rams another, eliminate one crew from that ship. In parentheses here, this seems to have replaced the reverse captain ability for this set.
Yep.
So that's interesting because, a galley can ram into another ship, with the bow. You can do that with the model. But built into the galley keyword, it can't eliminate masts by ramming, unless I'm mistaken somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so then you can do some damage. It kind of incentivizes ramming a bit, which I like. So. And reverse captain is overpriced, so this would have been a decent change. I don't know if this means that they would have hardly ever done reverse captain, but anyway, maybe they added that later, evidently, and we'll see a few other ships like that. But yeah, I think for the entire set, at least for the Corsair, it's definitely every time reverse captain was going to be there and ended up in the final set, it was originally going to be this eliminated crew when you ram. So
interesting. So, looking at the stream here, crew elimination for Corsairs changes everything. Would you agree with that? That instead of the reverse captain, if more of their ships, would that change their overall feel?
Yeah,
you would think?
I think it would, because you could be more combative with them on purpose, because reverse captain is more of a defensive ability anyway, and then with the crew elimination, ramming is more incentivized, like I said. So yeah, I think that would be cool. So I'm gonna respond there. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think I might have to see more examples, because I haven't really looked at these too much. Looks like the next ship that would have that ability would be the Persian Victory, which, when released, had the reverse captain and was 13 points. Originally, we were going to make her 14, and with that crew elimination ability. So, I guess it would change how you play the Corsairs, because a lot of people don't think of the Corsairs as having any kind of gunship at all. I think a lot of people just think of the Corsairs as, like, super good at getting gold, with, like, fringe cases of gunships, like, what the Janissary's Blood became.
Yeah.
Or what you can do with the Nubian Prince, just because of that ability alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it would make them more combative, but I think it would make them a bit better, partly because reverse captain is just not that useful. It's hard to find uses for it in general, so it's just not that practical.
Yeah.
So, the next one is absolutely bonkers and kind of on par
Winds
with the
of
Carolina.
Vengeance.
So the Winds
Oh
of
my
Vengeance
goodness.
is a 6-point ship with 4 cargo and S+S speed, and she originally was going to be 7 points instead of 6, and with a whole nother S, so 3 S's, S+S+S speed, and then 5 cargo instead of 4. So she's going to be considerably better for just 1 more point. Still with that negative ability, but she would, similar to the Carolina, she would catapult into some of the best gold runners ever with this original version. She's still a good ship, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I like her with a helmsman, and then just nothing else really. She's a good gold runner. She's one of the many very good 6-point ships the Corsairs have, but in this case, she would be their best gold runner, pretty much without a doubt. So
they
changed it to make her a little more
right up there with the Tiger's Eye, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Some minor little changes then after that first couple bombshells. The Wicked Kareen was originally going to be 11 points, but she wound up being 10. So, I guess that's kind of minor.
Yeah.
The Algiers was going originally to be 12 points, wound up as 11. So it looks like they, instead of increasing cost, for these two at least, it looks like they decreased the cost.
Or, increased for these two, decreased for the other one, so...
Well,
only a Nubian Prince got cheaper, but yeah. The Splendor got more expensive too, which I don't agree with. The other two we just went over, it's okay either way. They're both good ships at either price. The Splendor at 10 is kind of pushing it. She's not a great ship. I like her, kind of a soft spot, but 11 would make her a little worth, so... the next one, though, Tiger's Eye, was going to be 13 instead of 12, which I agree with. She could be 14 or 15 easily. So I wish they had kept the 13-point cost there, but oh well, far too late for that. And then
Bay's Revenge. Okay, another instance of that reverse captain ability. Ooh, this one might have been, a difference maker. Espacel move, a nice set of cannons, so you could do additional damage, potentially.
Yeah, it changed a little bit, but decent ship either way. It's kind of pricey.
Yeah.
So, the Scorpion was going to be 10 points instead of 9, so not too good there. She's not great anyway. Desert Wind is going to be 12 points instead of 13. Not a big change, just 1 point cheaper. Pasha's Delight, this one is a little more interesting. So this is a 9-point galley 2-master with LL speed and only 1 cargo. She was originally going to be 10 points, but with 3 cargo. So that would make her better and more viable. Still not a great ship compared to some of the other Corsairs. If the Corsairs ever got a flotilla, the Pasha's Delight would be the ship to use, I think. But anyway, and then I'll let you cover this next crazy one.
Okay, let's see. The Dervish. As released, what we saw in packs and whatnot. Okay. There we go. She would have been 4 points, 2 masts, 4 cargo, base move L, 4 S5S, and base move becomes S when she reaches her cargo limit. Yeesh, that's not good. However, the original plan for the Dervish was 12 points, 5 cargo, 3 S speed, and home island raiding instead of the cargo ability. Oh my. So they don't mention the guns, or the point cost either. So this still would have been... Oh, wait, no, the point cost. Okay.
Points, yeah.
But, wow, that's a heck of a change.
Yeah, it's completely the opposite. Like, she goes from, kind of an underwhelming, cheapest ship in the fleet, like, build, filler, into like this dominant like home island rating Banshee. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be crazy.
Good grief.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool too. I think both are cool actually. I think the original Dervish is still okay and maybe a little bit underrated, but there's way better Corsair ships. But this original version would be more interesting and would see somewhat more usage, so be interesting. Yeah. And then the next one, the final one for the Corsairs here, is the Nimcha, which was a 10-point ship, or is a 10-point ship, I should say. She was going to be 11 points with a 3L cannon instead of 3S. Not a big change. And then, of course, when the ship rams, you can eliminate a crew instead of the reverse captain ability. That one, pretty meh. 3 changes, but all of them are a little, it's okay. Become more of a suicide ship than like a defensive, like smoke bank type ship, as she is now. A lot of times the Nimcha gets used for the smoke bank home island rating strategy, but
yeah, taking advantage of that reverse captain there.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yep. And then getting into the English, I'll go over this.
This is another game changer one right here.
So the English are my favorite faction. This one would have changed them, similar to how the Carolina would have revamped the Americans. HMS Antelope, as she is now, it was a 5-point ship with 2 masts, 2 cargo, SL speed, 4L cannons, no ability. So just a really basic English ship. I usually use her as an empty gold runner or maybe a flotilla tug. She's not very remarkable or interesting. She was originally going to be 7 points, so 2 points more, but with S plus SSS speed instead of S plus L, so a little faster, 5 cargo instead of 2, and guns of 4S. So the guns are a little worse, but everything else gets better, more expensive, but it has to be. This would be one of the best English gold runners, and probably their best overall. This is better than HMS Hound, better than the Dover, better than the Lady Provost, because she's, about half the cost. This would be just crazy good for the English.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And it'd still be a good flotilla tug too, but in this case, a defensive gold runner type one. So, yeah.
Oh. And rounding out the English, the St. George, instead of having 1 cargo, as it does now, was originally going to have 3.
Yeah.
So
the English and the Americans got shafted pretty hard in the final versions here.
Oh yeah, with cargo space and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on now to the Spanish. El Mambo became El Paso. No other changes. And just another little name and ability one. The Alonso de Orozco was originally going to be called Saint Alonso de Orozco, and had that reverse ram eliminate crew instead of reverse captain. And that's about it for them. French, another, well, I don't know if this is a minor change. Lilu Garo was originally going to be 10 points with +1 to cannon and boarding rolls against Barbary pirate ships?
Yeah, they changed
possibly original name for them.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the Wizkids documents, it's always Barbary pirates, so they directly replace the pirates in the set.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I'm glad they changed it though, because Corsairs makes more sense. It's more distinctive. So, yeah. Yes.
And I was released the Luke Garot with 17 points and just Ghost Ship with only 3 cargo and SPSL base move. It's a little weird.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. One of the weirdest ships. The guns are weird too. With this change, I would say she becomes less bizarre and less interesting, but a little bit better from a practicality standpoint. She's still not very good though, because she would need more cargo or better guns to be of use. She's still not good enough. So, whatever.
Yeah, well, it doesn't say that anything else about her would change.
No,
so still 3 masts, still 3 cargo, still SPSL base moves, same cannon breakdown.
Yep. Yeah, so less interesting, less bizarre, but a little bit better for gameplay. So anyway, I kind of like her as like this bizarre anomaly, so I'm kind of glad they left it, even though it's overpriced. Anyway, she would be interesting with like the original version, but maybe like 15 points and 5 cargo. Then she could be like kind of an interesting little gold runner, or a weird one anyway. So, and then finishing up Barbary Coast, the Americans had some name changes. So the Intrepid became the President, and then the Washington became the Intrepid. There was originally a ship called the Washington, and eventually we saw a Lady Washington in Rise of the Fiends, but they were considering some version of that name as early as Barbary Coast. So it's a little bit interesting there. And And then moving on to South China Seas, this is the one set that honestly
things get wonky.
Yeah, this is where you can't really even. It would take like too many hours to even go through all the changes. A lot of them were minor, and a lot of it is really confusing. One of the hard things about South China Seas, it took me a while to compile the set in the master spreadsheet because the original documents don't have the final version of the spreadsheet. There's 3 different files, and one of them is like hook boarding 1. It's not even called South China Seas or anything like it. And there's like hook boarding 1 in like parentheses, and then hook boarding 2 seems to be the most recent, but it's still not the final version. So there's flavor text missing, names are changed throughout, and it's just confusing. Quite confusing actually. So the big change though is instead of 6-masted junks, there were going to be 4-masted junks, which I don't like. So I'm glad they made them bigger because it's much more interesting. Makes the faction more diverse and more playable because they actually have some full capital ships that are slightly bigger than the 5-masters that the other factions got. And with the 4-masted junks, I didn't go through every single one because in general they had the same abilities. They were just called like Junk 1, Junk 2. They didn't even have like Grand Dynasty laid out. 3 out of the 5 had faster speeds, so I think the Grand Wind went to S+S speed instead of S, which is cool. The Grand Mountain was L instead of S, and then I think the Grand Dynasty was S+S instead of S. So they were better overall, but I'm still glad they made those ships bigger. Maybe they decreased the speeds because of the extra, weight. If they make the ships bigger, they figure maybe decrease the speed too. But it did result in the Grand Dynasty and Grand Wind getting shafted and nerfed quite a bit, a little too much, because they're not very good. And they had lower
and being the only 2 like really good gunships out of those 6ers would have been the Temple and the Grand Path.
Yeah, exactly.
If only because they're so much faster than the others.
Yep, exactly.
I'm also glad they made them bigger because that avoids, the problem of the Corsairs and the Vikings.
Yeah.
Like your biggest ship is, a 3-master or a 4-master.
Yeah.
So you're kind of operating like, on glass cannons.
Yeah, yeah. And then for these original 4-masted junks, those 5 were between 12 and 15 points. And then, final versions, they went from basically 14 to 20, I guess. And then, so it's just confusing. So also, in different versions of South China Seas, if you look at it in the document, there's various swapped names and abilities. It's difficult to determine due to the lack of names. So it's like French 1, French 2 instead of the Scipion and Gaul and all the other names. And then there's general inconsistencies. So some stuff got like changed and then like switched back, I think. So anyway, but there are some stuff, there's some interesting things. So for example, Le Pluton was 14 points instead of 15. That's actually a French ship I like quite a lot. She's not that great, but 14 points, she would be a little more playable. USS New Orleans was going to be way more boring, so it's good they changed her. So she's a 12-point ship with that derelict teleportation capture ability that we see on Commander Temple from Spanish Main, and his original name
was original Harbinger.
Yeah, exactly. And so he was originally called Commodore Temple, but anyway, so New Orleans, instead of that, she was 10 points instead of 12 with +1 to boarding rolls, which is really boring, instead of that derelict capture ability. So they made her a lot more interesting and a bit better by changing her. So I'm happy with that one, at least.
I like this change here. I wish they would have kept the original stats here for the Lord Kettering.
Yeah.
Because that's the English capital ship, the 5er from here. And as it is, she's just 13 points, 5 mass, 4 cargo, L move, all 3 rank cannons, and +1 to cannon rolls against the Jade Rebellion, which is a cookie cutter copy of the Goliath from Crimson Coast, except replace Jade Rebellion with French.
Yeah.
So what I see here is instead of being 13, I see 16, which more expensive, but I see S-board, which I like slightly better.
Yeah,
I like that slightly better than the cannon bonus against the Jades.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Because it's more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And more, it's not as niche of a use, so you can use it more often and reliably. So, I would like
and we have no idea how much time went into ships before they were printed, like in terms of their stats or abilities. I suspect where they had the most time was probably Spanish Main, because that was the first one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to suspect that they probably did actual play testing for Spanish Main.
Yeah.
But after that, I don't think they did any at all.
Yeah, I think they did some. Wolf said they didn't do much for Caribbean and maybe some of the later sets, but I think they just still did some. It's just some got left out or some were rushed. So Caribbean was like one of the main ones they barely did any. So which is why you see, Captain Jack Sparrow, Endeavor, Jolly Mon, stuff like that. So
all those nutty things like that.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so next one, HMS Malton. So these are basically swapped. So this is part of the confusion. Yeah, so the HMS Malton was going to be 12 points instead of 14, and she was going to have that +1 against the Jades cannon bonus instead of escorts. They swapped abilities, and to a lesser degree, the point costs didn't swap directly, but they got changed. So anyway, so stuff like that kind of makes that confusing to look at in the spreadsheet. One that got worse was HMS Gallant, which is a 8-point ship with 3 cargo. She was going to be 9 points for 4 cargo, and her guns were going to be a little bit better too. Her guns are 3S, 4L, 3S, and it was going to be a 3L in the middle instead of the 4L. So she got a little worse, and she's one of my least favorite English ships. Really boring. Artwork is kind of drab, so I wish they had the original.
Yeah.
But even the original isn't too good, but it's a little better. And then we get into the Hook Boarding 2 document, which seems to be the last version in the of the spreadsheet in the South China Seas files that Wolf shared with me. And so just some name changes. Virtuous Wind was called Wind of Virtue. The Sea Serpent was called the Sea Dragon, which of course became a model eventually, and is also a Barbary Corsair ship. So probably good they changed that. Say Zhu, his original name was Mao Zhu. I don't know if they changed it.
They might have done that for political purposes.
I think so, yeah. Some kind of Chinese, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I know, I saw that. I was like, ooh, Mao, interesting. And then it gets real confusing. So the Cheshire, the Prince of Chichester, Hibernia, the names and stats and abilities were all flipped around, and it's hard to even decipher which was which. So anyway, the Santa Ana...
Which was which?
Yeah, exactly. The Santa Ana Great Spanish Four Master with extra action ability was called the Santi Spiritus.
That's
anyway.
a cool name.
Yeah.
Maybe we can reuse it for our custom. That's cool.
Yeah.
I really like the Santa Ana, though. That's awesome. I finally got my hands on her.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, she's a great ship. Yeah. One that I kind of glossed over for the previous podcast that you could argue is new. The Spanish ships are all mixed up, but the ship called the Bahama, which is actually a 3-master from Crimson Coast, but this South China Seas Bahama is kind of a weird mix of other ships. It takes some things from the Annunciata and some other stuff from who knows where. And so the Bahama was going to be a 2-master for 12 points, 2 cargo, SSS speed, 3S, and then both cannons were going to be 3S. And cannons can't be eliminated unless the ship is sunk, so the same as the Dreadnought's ability. So, not a very good ship, but
this might have been one of those, 2-masted blockade sloop ships.
Yeah.
With that ability.
Yeah, I can't remember the rarity, but yeah. Yeah, so this one probably could have been podcast number 31, but she's not very good anyway, and it's weird because they had already used the name in Crimson Coast, and there's everything except for the point cost and ability is taken from the Annunciata, so I think that's what she became, but it's really confusing. So, anyway.
Yeah. And just a bunch of name changes. The San Agustin was going to be something called Pataje, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Potentially, maybe. I don't know exactly. Enrique de Manilla was what Horacio Linares was originally going to be called until they changed him to that. Padre Francisco was this originally going to be Father Felino. And so they're trying to make tongue twister crews here, man. Come on. Give me a break.
Yeah.
This is now we're getting some French ones. More name flip-flopping. Mont Blanc was originally not the flotilla. All right, no. Something called... Okay, this is nuts. I'm trying to think about this now. Wait a second.
Yeah, the Mont Blanc was a blockade runner before the flotilla.
Okay, there it is. Le Mont Blanc was originally going to be called Corsica, and Mont Blanc became La Corse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is all kinds of weird.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I just went really fast and tried my best to record some of it. So there could be more on this, but it's just so muddled and random and doesn't matter too much nowadays. So anyway, Let's see. Oh, okay. So Princess Auri Aura, otherwise known as Princess Bowels, on the miniature fitting fleet section for miniature review. I forget who had that comment. That was one of my favorite comments.
Princess Bowels
Section.
So I was like, so how do you say your name? I'm gonna pinch my friend.
Yeah.
That's how you say your name. It's like that sound you make when someone pinches you. That's about it.
Yeah. So she was, instead of a 0-point crew like Jonah, she was a recruiter for 3 points. So it takes up no card space when revealed. When revealed, put a crew with point cost 2 or less from outside the game onto the ship. So maybe this meant the French were never going to get a 0-point delimiter crew. So I don't know. Neither are my favorites. The 0-point crew are better. So it's good the French didn't get shafted here, I guess you could say. But I don't know. Kind of. It's similar concept, but it's good they changed her, sort of, debatably. And then the USS Hudson was going to be 11 points instead of 12, but she's a very good gunship at 12, so that's fine that they changed it up. And
I need to get my hands on some of these ships from South Tennessee. I don't have a whole lot of them.
Yeah, it's such a great set. So the USS Montezuma was 12 points instead of 8, and originally she has the ability to shoot through ships. This is a 2-point blockade runner. And then instead of that ability, she was going to have cannons can't be eliminated unless the ship sinks. So I like the real version better because she's, a nice cheap, or not cheap, but she's a good support gunship, pretty solid in her role. So I think at 12 points she becomes borderline obsolete due to some of the other American ships that exist, and just because of the cost, 12 points for 2 mass, it's tough to justify without it being like a great gold runner like the Monarca, or I should say the Lodi Provost for 13. But anyway, starting to ramble here. USS Delaware became USS James Madison. So, and we mentioned the Delaware earlier. The Essex became the Delaware. So some name flip-flopping with the Delaware, obviously. And then one thing I found interesting that Wolf would love, or already knew about, of course, Hidden Cove. Reveal this event at the beginning of one of your turns to dock one of your ships, the Neelish Wild Island, that you have explored or has no treasure on it. So this is the version that Wolf preferred and wanted to go to the printers, but they changed it to the nearest Wild Island in general, which totally breaks the event and breaks the game hugely for competitive play, and any play, really. So the original version of Hidden Cove would have been a lot better, as Wolf has already talked about before, and that's one of the biggest. So, oh well.
Yeah, you're not alone. Wolf wouldn't have been the only one who liked that version of Hidden Cove. I like the one that came out just because I do. I like the overpowered stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
But this is like, I guess a more fair version of it.
Yeah.
So how is it that this would have been changed, but mermaids wouldn't have been?
I don't know. It's just
that's weird.
They were kind of off their rocker, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Although something I wish they would have done this for the final print. False Treasure, instead of being 10 points, I wish they would have kept it at 7.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that at 7. That would be like, more fun to use.
Yeah, and more viable in smaller games too.
Oh heavens, yes.
Yeah. So False Treasure is infamous for being the most expensive event by a mile at 10 points. So yeah, that would be
borderline useless.
Yeah.
No one ever uses it practically.
Yeah, it's tough to justify.
I think I use it as like a point sink in a garbage fleet challenge.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or I use like, it in Duel or something in conjunction with the Doctor crew or whatever. It was nuts.
Nice. This one I find interesting, which I'll mention in a second. So, for the Volcano UT, at the end it says, it says Volcano for most of the UT text. This is the unique treasure from South China Seas. Like, you eliminate a crew and or treasure from the island or whatever. And then at the end, the original text says remove Volcano God from the game instead of just Volcano. So I don't know if it was originally called Volcano God, but I actually have a custom, like, super powerful custom crew called the Volcano God eventually coming along here from Pirates of the Epic Seas. That kind of made me laugh because it's like, oh wow, my customs are kind of like some kind of weird premonition thing or some kind of reverse mind reading going on. So I just found that one really interesting. So maybe the UT was going to be called that, but there's a lot of interesting things you can do there, as I'll eventually show off with my custom set. And then Albatross was going to be a little less annoying. So That's the UT that you subtract one from all die rolls made by this ship. Albatross cannot be unloaded, but the original version didn't fly around. So the final version, you roll a 6, and it goes to a different ship that I think your opponent chooses, which is really annoying. And you have to roll every turn, which is annoying. So the original version didn't fly around. It makes sense thematically, so I think it's fine, but it's just a really annoying native UT in general.
Yeah. The wording for pension changed slightly. Load this treasure face down. You may reveal one docked at your home island. You may sell each crew aboard the ship for 1 gold.
Yeah.
I think that's just, a wording change to make it more clear what's happening.
Yeah. I think
instead of like, oh, this guy's worth 10 points, I'll get rid of him, I'm gonna get 10 gold.
Yeah. Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they may have partially done it too to avoid any slavery comparisons. It says you may sell each crew, so it starts to get kind of ugly. Kind of like with the Mao Zoo thing we talked about earlier. A few of them may have been for that reason.
This may not go over well with some of our target audience.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one from South China Seas, and we'll talk more about him soon, but El Phantasma, spelled PH once again. Phantasma. And the Ocean's Edge version was going to show up in South China Seas as the super rare. So it originally got changed to Ghost Ship and then Home Island rating and can't be is put on your home island if eliminated for 6 points. So he was going to be the exact same as the OE version, 5 points for a SAC captain. So I'm glad they have a lot of versions of him, but it's tough to choose which to go with because they're so good. So kind of interesting.
Okay, I'm glad they put the SAC captain on a more available version of him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Great point. Yep. I agree there. All right, you'll be excited about the next one, so I'll let you cover some of that. That's more up your alley.
Boy, Davy Jones' curse. We're getting into the cursed. Yay! My people. Oh, I'm so happy to see. Okay, this is interesting. The Flying Dutchman was originally going to be called something along the lines of the Blood Sacrifice. Since I only see a name change, I'm assuming that the rest of the ship would have stayed the same.
Yeah, it's exactly
so 4 cargo, 5 mass, base move, all 2 L cannons, and broadsides attack.
Yeah, I think they may have done it to avoid copyright problems. Because Davy Jones, I think Dead Man's Chest came out in 2006. That was the same year as Davy Jones's Curse. So it might have been kind of caution on their part. So, but
I don't think Disney would have had a copyright on that specifically.
Yeah,
just because there were legends about a ship called the Flying Dutchman before Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, of course.
But I like this flavor text here.
Yeah.
The blood sacrifice, a mysterious captain believes that he needs to spill innocent blood into the ocean to summon Gog Clock. He attacks any ship on sight, intent on one day harnessing the demonic creature. Okay, so that flavor-wise lends some explanation to why the sea monsters are all cursed or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's cool to see brand new flavor text after all this time, 12 years later. Yeah. And then Davy Jones was not in the set either, so they basically took Flying Dutchman and Davy Jones out of the set and then added them at the end. So this is actually, what's weird is that this was labeled the final version of Davy Jones' Curse. So I think the first ship in the set, the Flying Dutchman, was one of the last to be added or changed. So it says final version of the set, but then it's not because Flying Dutchman and Davy Jones are different. Almost everything else is the same, and you can see there's not much more left to cover in this set. The changes doc here. Davy Jones was replaced by Screaming Mimi as number 025 instead of Screaming Mimi being a super rare, and I'll let you cover why that was with the next card.
Alright, so the super rare was going to be El Phantasma again.
Yeah.
Okay, making him much more prominent. But he was going to be the copying and limit version. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So they were going to reserve possibly one of the more interesting abilities in the game for the super rare.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they put this into the regular set and gave it to Jones.
Yeah, me too.
Although I can see it. Okay, this then explains why Phantasma has his flavor text the way he does in Rise of the Fiends. Because if they had just kept Jones out of the Cursed from the get-go, then by the time you got to Rise of the Fiends, there wouldn't have been any raised eyebrows at that flavor text.
Yep. Yeah.
So he's been around. He's the master of the Cursed since the beginning. Huzzah, whatever.
Yeah, it is interesting, the flavor implications of it. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad they didn't give Phantasma the copying, because that would make it even harder to choose which version to use.
Oh yeah, that too. And then I like this flavor text. Rewarding him for the souls he has sent into the depths, the demon gods of the seas have granted El Phantasma the power to preserve only for themselves. What they don't know is that Phantasma hasn't decided whether to continue serving them or to turn against them.
Yeah.
Ooh, spooky.
Yeah, I find that really, like, super interesting, actually. It's basically...
Yeah, he was dancing on the razor's edge even back then.
Yeah, the demon gods of the seas have granted El Phantasma power reserved only for themselves. So he's got, like, godlike powers. That partially explains his rise in Rise of the Fiends as well. So,
yeah.
Pretty crazy. So he's, like, all-powerful, a lot like Davy Jones. So, yeah.
Yeah, evil laugh. Insert here.
Yeah.
All right, and I like this next one as well for the Mistwalker, the super rare sea monster. Instead of being 14 points, which is what he is currently, or she, originally was going to be 11 points for L plus L move, cannons of 2L, 3S, 3S, and 2S, and then sea monster and fog hopping. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, as is, Mistwalker is already pretty cool for being a fog-hopping sea monster with L plus L base move.
Yep.
But getting that for 11 points?
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Yeah.
And then seeing how Screaming Mimi became Davy Jones, I'm assuming then that before he got limit and copy, he would have just been an L mover.
He wasn't in the set. I found two versions of Phantasma. So I think El Phantasma was still a rare in Davy Jones' Curse. Like, he had two versions in the same set.
Oh,
so he was a rare.
So they pulled, like, an Ocean's Edge.
Yeah.
Where you've got, like, the uncommon version of that shark. Then you've got the rare version of the shark, which, there's no difference.
Yeah, for Phantasma. But I'm pretty sure the rare version of Phantasma was the same with the World Hater, Reverse Captain, that stuff. So
not his best outing ever, but
yeah. And then speaking of that, Jack Hawkins, instead of the 9-point Captain Reverse Captain crew, who's not very good, he would have Captain plus S board. I don't know. I don't know if I forgot a point cost. I don't know. He would probably be 7. I should look that up and see if it was 7 or 9. But either way, it would be a little bit better version. So
anyway. I don't think I think the Pirates have like one S board captain.
Yeah, Will Turner. Right?
I'm not positive. Yeah. So I like this actually.
Yeah.
I wish they'd done that. Darn it.
Yeah. Anyway. So final little change from Davy Jones' Curse is that Jerky Johnson was actually going to be the same as the Ocean's Edge version of CPO Charles Richard. So Captain +1 to boarding rolls and +2 to boarding rolls against sea monsters. So they changed him to the Jerky Johnson we know now, which is an L mover. So I'm glad they made that change. And both.
Oh no, he's not an L mover. He's a sea monster booster.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. L booster, not L mover. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So I think both crew are decent. So I'm glad they didn't really change them. It's kind of either way. What I found interesting though is when I wrote this down, it's like he basically went from hating sea monsters to like aiding them in the final version. So he kind of had a total 180 if you think about the ability changes. So +2 against boarding, instead he get +L booster. So, yeah. And then
I wonder if Jerky likes jerky.
Yeah.
The puns.
Yeah. And then there's basically a huge gap. So we saw this in the 31st episode of the podcast. There's basically not draft versions of a lot of the middle and later sets. It was mostly the first 3 to 6 sets. So in other sets, there's not nearly as many changes because it's mostly just the final versions, which just have what we know today. But there are some weird ones, which we'll talk about. So in Mysterious Islands, HMS Botany Bay had a 4K gun at the stern. So it's over 4,000. I know. So I saw that. I was thinking $4,000 or 4K is a screen resolution, or really high def or something.
Maybe it's what they would have decided to call the measurement of L plus L or something.
Yeah. I thought.
Instead of calling it just L plus L, we're gonna call it K.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Yeah. So I'm going to look her up real quick. Oh, so yeah, it's 3L, 2L, 4L. And on my keyboard, yeah, so L and K are right next to each other. So I guess they meant to type the L, obviously, and that's what ended up as the ship being. But I think it would be funny if that somehow made it onto the card or the ship somehow. That'd be pretty funny. 4K gun. It's almost like I thought of, when I first saw this, I thought of like maybe the mizzen mast is worth like $4,000 or pounds of gold or something. It's like the mizzen mast is made of gold or something. Like something really silly. But anyway, the next ones you'll probably like, or not.
Yeah.
But
all right, USS Mercury, instead of being, where is it? Where's she
16.
going? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
16 points for the Mercury. And she would have been, let's see if I can find it. Oh, way down here.
Yeah, 14.
Here. Oh, wow, 14.
Yeah. So she's already one of the best submarines, and she would have been kind of overpowered, I think, at 14.
Better!
Yeah. Just like a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
And then the Slipstream was going to be 2 points cheaper as well at 10 points. She's kind of meh, I guess, at 12. She's good, but not as good as the Mercury. I think 10 points still would maybe be too cheap. Submarines are kind of abusable in certain game styles, especially with the crew of any nationality ability use their abilities. So the Slipstream is pretty solid at 12, so I don't really have a problem with keeping her there rather than lowering.
Aside from being, like, really difficult to get a hold of.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I still don't have the Slipstream physically. Yeah.
And then moving on to some Frozen North changes, looks like. Our good Viking friend Skod Blood Axe, because what kind of Viking name is that? It's the best kind. As he appears, he's 7 points, and if he succeeds at a boarding party, choose two of the following: eliminate crew, treasure, or eliminate a mast. But originally, he was going to be 1 point, and on the turn the ship is pinned, eliminate one crew from the enemy ship. I like that much better.
Yeah, I talked about on the set review how the real version is just horrible and way, way overpriced, like 3-point ability maybe, something like that. So yeah,
although I can see potentially why they changed it. Because he's a Viking, and the Viking ships have that same thing as galleys where they can't ever, be pinned.
Yeah, good
So
point.
maybe they would have been a pirate code ruling, like, it says pinned, but we mean when it rams.
Yeah.
So instead of, creating a whole separate ability, they just would have, I guess, did the change. Although I like the original version better. I wish they could have kept that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Okay, the next one up, the Erd. Where's the Erd? Is that cursed? Is that one of those funky ones from near the bottom, or am I just missing it somewhere?
Yeah, it's a super rare, the Icebreaker. She was going to be 13, and then she got moved to 15. So the Erd, a cursed, or no, not cursed. Oh, wow, there's some, alright, I got to fix these mistakes in the spreadsheet. Huh. Must be copy-paste errors. Anyway.
Because your spreadsheet says 13.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. I got to change the faction, though. Do that first.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
Yep. Alright, so originally the Erd was going to be 15 points, but was listed with 5 3S cannons, but was somehow still a 3-masted icebreaker. So, what? Wait, what?
Yeah. So that was one of the weirder ones. Kind of similar to how the Hoya del Sol had 4 cannons, but was listed as a 5-master in the Spanish main spreadsheet. This one's even weirder.
Maybe they had 2 permanent built-in musketeers.
Yeah, or some kind of
something like that, like a marine that had a really bad cannon.
I know, it's bizarre. Either that, or it reminds me of bombardiers, or like a they were gonna do like a 5-masted icebreaker as like a super rare special icebreaker. But
that would have been fun to see.
Yeah, that would probably
have been fun to see.
Yeah, it probably would have been costly because they'd have to make a new die or do a new cut just for one ship or whatever. So. Anyway,
would have been worthy of being a super rare.
Yeah. So the Erd was going to be a little worse. She's still pretty mediocre anyway. The Verdani was also going to get worse. This is a 16-point cursed 2-masted longship, 2 cargo L move, 2 S cannons, and some expensive abilities. And she's going to be 17 points instead of 16, so she could probably get away with 13 or so. It's good they didn't go with 17. Still pretty minor. And I just threw in. Damsel in Distress was originally going to be Captain Teague. I know we mentioned that on the 31st podcast. I still find that one of the most interesting and cool changes of all. We already went over it, but anyway, so Keith Richards was indirectly going to be part of Pirates, his character anyway, so...
that was probably changed because he didn't want his visage showing up somewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. Yeah, I still think it'd be cool, but anyway. Okay, so on to a Savage Shores / Return to Savage Shores. I think these changes are pretty much all from the Savage Shores folder that Wolf shared with me because it was called that before the set got split. So Return to Savage Shores doesn't really have much new stuff, but some of these game pieces are, of course, from what we now know as Return to Savage Shores, so it's kind of confusing, but anyway. So Intermediero, which is that 5 segmented Spanish squid for 17 points. Instead, she was going to be 18, and instead of 2 cargo, she was going to have 4. She's the one with that
why'd they nerf my squiddy
swapping ability.
Why'd they nerf my squid?
Yeah. I don't think it's too big a deal because they can't do a lot with the cargo, but still
still.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, I don't think.
That would have been fun to see, though, or to think about how you could find a way to get treasure onto a squid.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not, like, a regular gold coin, but if you could find a way to get, like, some kind of UT onto a squid.
Yeah, that's what's hard.
And see what happens there.
Yeah, that's what's hard, because they eliminate them. They win the porting, so it's difficult. But
yeah.
Alright.
Namzu looks like he would have been 14 points originally.
Yeah, instead of 15.
Instead of being, let's see, 15.
Yeah.
Okay, that reasonably minor, considering that, he's, for that ability, he probably still should be more.
Yeah, definitely.
But there it is.
And then the next one.
Hoists, in general, looks like they were going to be, 20 points across the board for most of them.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, this one was a little weird. And this is not quite like South China Seas. It's not as confusing, but if you look at the data folder within the Savage Shores folder in the documents, there's some of the rarities in the PDFs some of them have 2 versions and some of them don't. So there's kind of like a first draft, second draft, and then final draft, and some of them don't have both first and second drafts, if you want to call it that. So hoists, so you can kind of see changes. You can kind of see 2 different changes to a lot of the ships in the original Savage Shores, and hoist being one of them. So they were going to be more expensive, and 3 out of the 4 costed 20 points. I think these were the rare hoists, I'm pretty sure. So, and then they started lowering them in the second version of the rare document. And if it sounds confusing, it is. You can go check it out. It's like rares 2. It's like a 2 in parentheses for the second version or whatever. So I wish they kept them more expensive because they're kind of overpowered. But oh well.
Yeah, that's getting to the point here. Even at 20 plus points, considering what hoists can do, I think they would still find uses in 40-point games.
Me too. Yep.
You just have to, build your fleet completely around maximizing their effectiveness.
Yeah.
And if it was just their point cost that changed and they kept all their other stats, the Frontier would still be pretty darn good. I mean, the Maui's fish hook is already right there at 20 points practically.
Yeah.
So the only one, I guess, that would have really affected would have been the Buscador.
Yeah.
But it looks like she was originally going to be 16 points anyways, so...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point, yeah.
I'm just looking at the Rook's Folly here, because I've got the Savage Shores one up. Looks like this did some switcherooing with the Black Coral.
Yep.
So the Rook's Folly was originally going to be 11 points. Let's see... And gains Eternal keyword as long as she has a crew with the Captain keyword or Captain in its name. Interesting wording on that ability. That, in and of itself, might bear some discussion later. But assuming that it was still, 4 cargo, still S plus S move, and still 4 S cannons across the board, with that ability would have made her, I guess, an interesting, funky kind of gunship.
Yeah.
As is, she's still a funky kind of gunship with possession.
Yeah, she's not very good, though. This would make her a lot better. So, the original.
I like her as, a kind of durable, highly durable, gold runner, maybe, or cargo getter.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's what I've seen her. I've done that a couple times. Run her empty to get islands.
Okay.
And then just figure on getting crew later on.
Yeah, exactly.
Like especially in a campaign.
Yeah. And then the one above, the A-bot, or however you pronounce it, the French one-masted schooner, or galley, from Return to Savage Shores, she wasn't released, of course, but was she released? She would be 8 points, 3 cargo, LS speed, and then plus S to base move with no cargo on board, but then she was going to be 12 points with the S immunity ability, same as the Nubian Prince, so can't be shot at by ships with an S of her. That would be annoying, because I hate that ability, so I'm glad they didn't do that, but that being said, a one-master is easily rammed out of commission in that instance, so it wouldn't be too big a deal for a small ship to have it, so...
Well, didn't they give S immunity to another ship in Return to Savage Shores? I could have sworn there's one in here. Like a tinier one that got some kind of S immunity. And I think it was French.
Yeah, the Sirene. Similar to the Bonaparte. Yeah.
Well, actually reminds me more of the Nubian Prince, just because it's a galley. Therefore, you don't ever have that problem of, ramming it to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, the Bonaparte not being a galley, therefore you can get pinned to it, that is a headache.
Yeah.
But galleys, that abilities on galleys, I think helps.
Yeah.
But only on galleys. Otherwise, massive headache.
Yeah, yep. The next one I find interesting, George Washington LeBeau was going to be, instead of the Micron ability for 6 points, he was going to be a Sea Monster L booster, just like Jerky Johnson.
Yeesh.
So
I'm glad they changed him to Micron, even though that is one of the most broken and abusable abilities.
Yeah, I kind of wish.
But I'm glad it went to someone like the Americans because they needed it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, I wish they had done the L booster, but that being said, it would create some redundancy with Jerky, and the Americans don't have many sea creatures anyway, sea monsters.
Yeah, I mean they've got Champ and Hee.
Yeah, they're terrible.
And those aren't good.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of Hee, I'll skip ahead. He was going to have 0 cargo, which is just...
I'm not sure if that helps or not.
It's ridiculous.
I'm not sure if that helps or not.
So he was going to have 1, but instead would have 0. So one of the worst sea creatures ever was somehow going to be worse if that's mind-boggling. So they just totally messed up on that horribly. But going back up so we don't skip any, Master Bianco, I don't know why. He was going to be 6 points instead of 7. He's got secret.
I'm in favor of that.
And Cargo Master. No, that's horrible.
I like that.
No, that's horrible.
Yeah,
so it'd be even more overpowered. That'd be secret hold for 1, basically.
Yeesh.
Anyway.
So looking at the stream here, I'd be willing to exchange the Frontier point cost for the original Carolina. I don't know. I mean, if the Frontier, keeping the Frontier as it is, and then using the original Carolina before she got nerfed, I prefer that more. All right, Buscador.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. 17 points for 7. Oh, I see what he's saying. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of weird. But
and we already talked about. Yeah. We talked about the Buscador briefly, 16 points originally instead of the 14 she wound up being. And this one is interesting to me. It's because of the Celestin. I like the Celestin as it is. Yeah. And released, she's got 11 points, 1 Massive Galley with 3 cargo and L+S move with a 4S cannon. But it looks like originally they were going to give her 4 cargo.
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
Even better.
I kind of wish they'd done that. That would have put her, up there into the upper echelon of cursed gold runners, probably with the grinder.
Yeah.
I mean, she's already there, pretty much, as one of the best gold runners the cursed have.
Yep.
That would have made her even better, especially since her link to the Master Scribe. Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be really good. The next one, Wraith, was going to be 5 points instead of 4. He's one of those crew where if crew are eliminated, roll 6 and can assign them to the ship. So that ability is
probably good that he didn't stay at 5.
It's difficult to use that ability, so I'm glad he stayed at 4. It's not really worth 5. It's tough to even really pull it off. Even in a huge game, I've had trouble making it worth it. So anyway. And then the next one is the Black Coral.
Oh, wow.
Which is
I'm liking this.
Yeah, go ahead and... Yeah.
I didn't see this earlier. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the Black Coral is from the unreleased Return to Savage Shores, and where is she? There she is. All right, so her stats that made it into the final version were 15 points, 4 masts, 4 cargo, S+S base move, range S cannons across the board, but 4s at the end and 3s in the middle. Secret hold, and gains the eternal keyword as long as she has a crew with the captain keyword or captain in its name. That by itself makes her like a funky hybrid right there, and I already like her as is right there for that. But this change here, oh my goodness, for 20 points, you would get the Cruzado ability, and you would still have Secret Hold.
Yep.
Wow. Oh man. Okay, so now, since the cannons wouldn't change, this would probably be a place where you could stick the Davy Jones Curse version of El Phantasma, and he wouldn't eat into the build or into the point space as much as he normally does.
Yep.
Because that's interesting. Wow, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, really
I like that ability, and comboing it with Secret Hold means you could try to pull off some kind of weird hybrid stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, some kind of weird, like,
interesting.
Kind of like mega defensive gold runner or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Man, why have I never thought of like making a custom that's got Secret Hold and this with it?
Yeah.
Why have I not thought of that before now? Come on.
Yeah. I like both versions of the Black Coral quite a bit. They're both really interesting. Anyway, the Metal Dragon is the next one, and that is a ship from Savage Shores that was released. Of course, this is a common English 3-masted junk, 11 points, 5 cargo. Ramming can eliminate the ship's masts. A solid hybrid for the English, and it was originally going to be 14 points instead of 12, and it would have the abilities that says enemy ships can't take treasure or trade treasure with this ship. So very similar to Secret Hold, but I would say that makes her a little worse because the point cost, well, it was 11, sorry, not 12. So that would make her worse without a doubt, not as usable. So a little bit better for keeping gold, but ramming can eliminate the ship's mast. That's a pretty good ability on its own. So
yeah, especially on a mid-sized ship like that where you could, in theory, ram her to death.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The next one I don't like either. The Mongrel was going to be 12 points instead of 13. Mongrel is from Return to Savage Shores. This one I've used multiple times, I think once in a physical game and a bunch in Vassal Campaign Game 3. Her ability is key. If this ship is within S of a friendly ship, when the ship is given a move action, she gets +S to her base move, and she's already got S+S. So with the Helmsman, it's pretty easy to move 4S. So at 12 points, that makes her underpriced. And the Mongrel, I've used her, and I can vouch that she's really a good ship. So I think she could be more expensive, if anything, not less. So
evidently the designers didn't agree with you.
Yeah.
Oh well. And yeah, the Black Coral, going back to that, would have been an extremely powerful option for the Cursed if you set it up correctly.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I forget the exact particulars of Secret Hold. Would that protection extend to like crew as well? Or no, I'm getting mixed up as just crew protection. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just for gold.
Yeah, oh well. The Cuerno de Cabra.
Yeah, this one is weird.
As released, is 11 points, has 2 masts, has 3 cargo, base move L, 2 L cannons, is a junk with the Cruzado ability. But originally they were thinking of making her 5 points with 1 cargo. Yeesh. And unknown cannons. With this, with the same Cruzado ability.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
This is bizarre because
that's bad.
I know, but it's really confusing. So I don't know if the unknown cannons, like I didn't see anything listed. You can check out the PDF and there's no cannons are like blank. So I think it's not too bad because it would be by far the cheapest ship with the Acorazado's ability. So I think it's actually a pretty interesting one. And then this would be a really abusive piece where you could copy this for just 5 points to a 10-master and like a mixed faction fleet. Yeah, so I think this is actually
oh my.
And then,
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, so I think it's actually decent. The 1 cargo holds it back. But for 5, I mean that ability, it's just bizarre. This is one of the weirder changes. So 5 points, you get the Acorazado's ability to copy or just use on the ship alone would still be decent. If the cannons were still 2L, 2L, that would be one of the only ships ever worth using without a helmsman, because you'd have to do the captain for the 1 cargo, and then you'd have 8 points with just L speed for the 2L cannons if they stayed the same for 8 points. That's still, it's slow, but due to the ability, it's actually maybe one of the only gunships you can ever excuse using without a helmsman.
Yeah.
Because you can't really fit one on for the most part. And then it was 8 points instead of 11 later on. And I think that's where the versions got mixed up. So there's like 2 versions of different drafts in Savage Shores. I would say the Savage Shores data folder is probably the most interesting in all the documents, along with Spanish Main Revolution as well. But it's really crazy. There's just so much to look at. So, and that's why I try to condense it so we wouldn't have to like go through it on the podcast, like searching for stuff. But anyway, HMS Silent Swan is a mediocre or worse ship, and she was going to be 9 points instead of 10. Doesn't really help much. I think she could be like 5 or 6. Not a very good ship anyway. So.
Yeah.
The next one is funny because of the comment, but I'll let you check it out.
All right. Godiva and Master Sipo Charles Richard, no abilities assigned.
Oh, we're 2 above that. I think we gotta do.
Oops, my bad.
That's all right.
La Canela, cinnamon, like El Dorado, a fabled valley of rare spices. What?
It says that on the PDF. Like it says that right next to the name.
What is that, like a research footnote or something? It's like,
yeah, I guess.
By the way,
this
is like the inspiration for this.
Yeah, the canela means cinnamon in Spanish. So, and then I guess it was like a flavor explanation, maybe a fabled valley of rare species or spices, I should say. It's pretty
rare species of what? Spices?
Yeah.
All right. Originally would have been 8 points with 2 masts, 3 L3S cannons, no schooner, and still 3 cargo with S Explorer. So, they would have made it a 2-master instead of a 3-master. Interesting.
Yeah. I'd say slightly better, I guess, for the purpose of like exploring islands, but a little not quite as good as like not a hybrid, but like you wouldn't be able to use the 2-master as a gunship as well. So, kind of a trade-off, really. Pretty simple trade-off.
Yeah.
And then the next one, HMS Goodfellow, was a 12-point English 2-masted schooner from Return to Savage Shores. So the English got a really good gold runner, S+S speed, 5 cargo, secret hold. It's going to be a little cheaper at 11. So I think 12 is fine given the abilities and the Lady Provost. So I'm fine with 12. But anyway.
That's a good place to put her, I think.
Yeah.
And then the aforementioned Godiva and Master Sipo, no abilities assigned. So were they just like, blank slates, like put them down, we'll think of something later?
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't see anything listed. One of them, I don't know if Godiva had flavor text or not, but yeah, they didn't have abilities, so it was pretty strange. There's a lot of interesting stuff.
A couple strange things right here in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, starting there, like navigators were originally going to be 3 points, which, I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
Or more fair for what they wound up being at 2. This is interesting. Shipwrights at 1 point. American at 2, likely just typo, but listed at 1 point in RTSS spreadsheet as well. Huh.
Yeah.
So are they going to, give every faction except the Americans a 1 point shipwright?
I don't think so, because I asked Wolf about that, and he said it was probably a typo. So I think that was just one of the like draft mistakes that they made. I'm pretty sure that would be really bizarre, and especially the shipwrights have been around since the early days. So it doesn't make sense to change the point costs, because then people would want to change point costs on all their shipwrights earlier as a house rule. So I'm pretty sure that was just a mistake. So, and then the Americans would get needlessly shafted. So it doesn't make sense. So.
Well, I'm looking at the next thing up here, and I'm thinking, you would have hated this if they had actually put the cargo masters in there at 3 points.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I think you might have not started. I think you probably would have stopped playing the game, or just straight up banned them and not used them.
Yeah, I would just.
As they are, cargo masters are pretty dang good at 5 points.
Yeah,
especially since you could stack them up.
Yep.
Imagine them at 3.
For 3, I would do the same thing with mermaids in most events and just say I just won't play with them. So that's just that.
Yeah.
So, like other people can, but that's not what I'm about. So, but yeah, the shipwrights, I do find it interesting. It was listed at 1 point in the RTSS spreadsheet, which is bizarre because that one was mostly final. That was one of the only like changes or mistakes in the Return to Savage Shores spreadsheet. So still a typo, pretty sure, but yeah, it's kind of weird because I like looked in there, I think specifically for that reason, I believe, because I was trying to get factions of the shipwrights or something for the master spreadsheet, I saw they're still listed at 1. I was like, oh boy, this is a messed up thing here. But anyway, okay, the next one is pretty strange as well. The Maui's fishhook is a arguably somewhat famous super rare from Savage Shores. It's the English hoist that has the silver glinting off her, kind of a shiny ship.
It's sparkly and shiny.
Yeah. And it's one of the most beautiful ships in the game, even though the hoist nature is kind of funky. So it's a 20-point hoist with 5 cargo, L move, and it was originally going to be 17 points. It was not going to have secret hold. It does have secret hold, along with a treasure stealing ability. And the guns on the PDF docs say 3S, 2S, 2S, 3S, but it's only a 3-masted ship. And
well, maybe they were thinking of making some kind of bombardier hoist combo.
Yeah, to that point, it says on the PDF docs, it says 4-mast hoist as the ship type, which I asked him about that as well, and he said it was probably a typo or some kind of error. So, and the Maui's fishhook ended up with 3L, 2L, 3L guns, so more or less cans, I should say, with L range. So pretty big changes, but
yeah. But imagine if it had been a 4-masted hoist.
Yeah, I don't even know. They'd have to do a different ship type. So yeah, if all the hoists were going to be 4-mast, they'd have to go even more up in cost, like 22 plus. That'd probably be a mess, honestly. So I think it's good they limited them a bit. So yeah, the Maui's fishhook, some very strange changes overall.
Yeah. This is interesting because of the review contest. The Manawana Hutu, the Heart of Stone, was going to be something called the Wraith's Relic.
Yeah.
When revealed, choose a crew on this ship. If this treasure is removed, taken, transferred, or unloaded from this ship, eliminate that crew. This ship gains the Eternal and Fear keywords. Different ability text from what it was originally.
Yeah, a little bit.
So the name is interesting, if only because in the contest, Volt implied in his story review that the Wraith was looking for this thing.
Huh. Interesting.
That's funny just to me, because I ran the contest, and therefore I know more about those reviews.
Yeah. I find it interesting because the name was actually in parentheses. That's actually how it appears in the PDF. So usually that was the only name that had parentheses around it. So I think that was the inspiration, and then they made like a final name to the Manawa name. So yeah, that makes sense from a flavor perspective.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about the ability, though, trying to remember.
That sounds like still like the ability it has.
It's pretty much the same, but instead of, hang on, so it's when revealed, choose a crew on the ship. If this ship treasure is taken, eliminate that crew. So in the original, if either one is removed, the other one gets removed. You know what I mean? Like it's like they affect each other. But in this case, it looks like if the crew is eliminated, the treasure stays there, I guess. So yeah, so it is different. It's actually it is different from a gameplay perspective as well. So yeah, let me try to find it real quick here.
Yeah, something that's always bothered me about this is how it's worded.
Yeah,
especially that last line. It's like, this ship gains the Eternal and Fear keywords.
Yep.
So when I first got this, I assumed that in order to get that second half of the ability, I would have to somehow find a way to get rid of the treasure or get rid of the crew to gain, the Eternal and Fear. I'm assuming it just gets those from the beginning.
Yeah, it just gets them, then you gotta protect both of them to keep them. Yeah. So the main change is that you eliminate the crew if the treasure is removed, but in the original text, if this treasure or that crew is removed from the ship for any reason, eliminate this remaining treasure or that remaining crew. I would say the final text is one of the most confusing in the UTs overall. So anyway, that would be interesting.
It's confusing, but concise. Now that I've had time to look at it.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
If the treasure gets removed for any reason, whatever, the crew that it gets linked to also gets eliminated or removed.
Yeah, and
vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's interesting about the original version. So if the treasure is eliminated, the crew stays. So the original version was slightly better or less, restrictive or risky, I guess. So yeah, that's the difference mostly, in the ability at least. So okay. So this I'll explain. It's really weird. one of the PDFs has, we went over the Spanish native canoes before they got changed to Savage Shores, the version we know now, and they were similar to the American native canoes, which we talked about on the previous episode. But in the second version of the LE limited edition PDF, because all the files are all split by rarity, it's kind of weird. The second version of the LE PDF has Spanish native canoes at 7 points, which would be ridiculously overpowered, but then it says the Chieftain at 4, so which combines to the same cost of 11 that they're listed at in the other PDF. So I don't know if they were thinking about trying to split the point cost between the canoes and the Chieftain, which doesn't make much sense because you can't assign 7 points to 5 canoes. It's really confusing.
This might have been like some kind of like, they were thinking, okay, the Chieftain is 4, and if you have the Chieftain, then you can use these 7 things, or like these 5 things for, an extra 30 points or something like that, assuming each canoe was like 7 points.
Oh, so that would be crazy.
Yeah, that would be, okay. If
each canoe was like Chieftain without the canoes, you might as well have both, so. Yeah. I think they were trying to split the assignment of the cost, but they realized they couldn't, or maybe it is a typo, because I think the same document might have other, or no, they were the LE, so I don't know if the same document has other canoes, but anyway, it's really bizarre. So that was, instead of 11 overall, costs is somehow split between the two. That's a funny one. I don't think I spoke about that, so that'd be funny. Probably just typo error or whatever, but anyway. Alright. You can do the last few if you want, or the next one anyway.
Okay. English Cargo Master listed with no ability at 0 points. It's like he never existed.
Yeah, that one was weird.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Shipping Sai, the final version of him, as opposed to the other 2 we got previously, was going to be 5 points instead of 6.
Yeah.
That's just the expatriate adding in there.
Yeah, but it's even more overpowered because SAT Captain for all the factions makes it even more crazy. It would open up a few extra setups on some random ships, and just make him even more playable, even though he's already one of the best named crew in the game, basically. So, and then I find it interesting, the name of the quote-unquote final spreadsheet that I saw, at least, was Return to Savage Shores 2 Art, is what a lot of the spreadsheets say, and it's dated 7/24/08, so I guess July 24th, 2008. So that was like, I don't know if that was one of the last times they made progress on pirate stuff in general. So that was the game.
That could be one that split the spreadsheet or split the set.
Yeah, Wolf talked about
somewhere around
way before Savage Shores came out, which was November 5th, 2008, and then Wizkids got shut down only 5 days later on November 10th, 2008. So yeah, so it was already, Return to Savage Shores was basically done almost 4 full months before Wizkids got shut down, but at least Wolf revealed the information and has now shared all this stuff with me and therefore everyone, because I've gotten it out to everybody so they can look at it. And yeah, like I said, at the top of this doc that I shared, you can find a link to download the official Wizkids documents. And other than that, that wraps up the changes. So again, I probably missed a few, but mostly just minor stuff. So tell us what you think of these changes. I do have a question of the day. Let me find my podcast doc up here. So the question of the day that we can also answer is, what would things have been like if this were the reality? So I would say it would be a little worse because we saw a lot of overpowered stuff and a lot of ships
especially near the beginning.
Yeah, a lot of ships that ended up being pretty good were going to be even better. So like the Antelope, Carolina, Winds of Vengeance, those 3 would have been 3 of the best gold runners ever, and kind of may have upset the balance of things a little bit. So most of the changes I think were for the better. Some of them not for the better, but anyway, overall, kind of just interesting stuff to look at. So.
Yeah, one of those not for the better changes is the Corsairs and their ability to eliminate crew instead of the reverse captain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, that pretty much wraps things up. So I think this marks 3 episodes released in the last 3 weeks, I believe. So we might take a little bit more of a break here. I'm not sure when the next episode will be coming out, especially after these 2 kind of mega episodes with a lot of brand new information, especially 31, which is crazy. So anyway, but thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back eventually for more Pirates Podcast.